Yeah, my name's Brian Zhang. I'm from Sydney, Australia. I've been a music teacher, guitar teacher for probably 10 years. 10 years sounds better. Technically, I've been teaching for 8.5, but I round up. And this year, I've been writing and talking more about mental health in the music industry, about my experience uh, battling depression as a musician. So, along with teaching, that has sort of intertwined with my music school and how I teach kids. So, and in regards to performing, I don't do that much anymore because most of my time is teaching and writing about music and mental health.
Okay, great. Well, can you go a bit into your background as an artist and how you got where you are now?
Yeah, definitely. So let's see. I always wanted to be a performer and go around the world touring. And my first music hero really was Tommy Emmanuel, the great Australian guitar player.
I know of him,
And
yeah.
yeah, he's even though he's been in America for a long time, he's an Australian icon. And seeing what he could do on the guitar as a one man band, that was the first time where I realized the acoustic guitar, not the electric guitar, can be cool. So as an
Yeah.
electric guitar player, you got to play in a band or you got to play in a group. You got to be a session player. I always wanted to play the acoustic guitar on their own. So this was around 2011, 2012. I was still in high school in ninth grade, eighth grade, and YouTube was starting to really roll around, be accepted as a platform, and Instagram was sort of coming around as well. Facebook was normal, or as normal as it could be. So I would upload videos of his songs, arrange pop covers. So for most of high school or second half of high school, I'd be uploading videos, writing my own songs, using YouTube as a platform. I'd get a couple of thousand followers, a couple of thousand views, and started performing around my local area in Sydney. So a lot of the time it was weird with people because I couldn't really explain what I was doing because they'd go, so you don't sing, so you play in a band? No, I don't play in a band. Oh, so you're like an electric guitar player. You're like Jimi Hendrix. Yeah, I like Hendrix, but no, I'm not like Hendrix. So why don't I just try to show you what I could do, and it either amaze people or confuse the heck out of people at the
Wow,
same
Jimi
time.
Hendrix, Tommy Manuel. I got to hear you play guitar at some point, man. That sounds amazing. Um, but let's get a bit into the business side. Can you tell me in your own words, what does it mean to be a professional musician today? And what are some of their primary challenges?
I think by definition, if you get paid to play music, to teach music, or provide any music service, then I guess
Mhm.
that constitutes a professional. Although, these days you can just talk about your music journey, what gear you like on social media, or do these podcasts like we're doing now, Mark. And so I think the traditional definition has become a bit grayer than it was because it used to be you're either a performer or a session player, songwriter, or maybe you work behind the scenes as a manager. So
Sure.
for me, the current challenges, along with there's I guess the black and white challenges. Trying to make a living, earning an income, getting yourself out there, finding an audience, building an audience, all sorts of things like that. For me, that stuff I think has always been there. I haven't been too in depth with the industry as a whole in that side. For me, the bigger challenges comes from the mental health side of things because that's what I've been writing about and dealing with rejection or the changing landscape of social media, how to handle criticism as well,
Mhm.
how to be original or be creative because there's so much out there now. When you write a song or you feel like you have something original, there's always going to be someone out there that you go on your phone and you find someone and you go, that person's better than me, or damn, I got to
Mm.
do what they're doing. So there's this loss of identity. And I know it doesn't really help the financial side or maybe the business side, but I think mentally speaking, emotionally, those challenges are starting to become more of an issue than the other challenges, if you know what I mean.
Well, certainly. I mean, if that's something that someone is struggling with, that's going to affect every other aspect of their lives and their professional lives as a musician. So, very, very great that you're working on that. Tell me a bit about more about how that plays out. So, if you're do you work directly one-on-one with musicians, or you give courses on this, or how do you help musicians going through this kind of issue?
Yeah, for the last 3 or 4 years with my school, I work directly with young kids. Most of them are school age, with older high school age kids. So you're getting to your 12, 13, 14-year-olds. That's where kids are starting to think about becoming professional musicians and performing or writing songs, getting music on Spotify. I think there are a lot more younger musicians who are putting music out there, which is great to see. For all the criticism and the issues with social media, I love seeing young kids getting music out there. Whereas maybe 20 years ago, you'd have to wait to find the 20-year-old who just burst on the scene. Now you're seeing the 12-year-old who's just burst on the scene. So with those young kids, I'm trying to educate them and help them guide through the challenges of social media, how to handle criticism, comments, putting content out there that, even though on one hand you want to try to find the balance between catering to the fan, but making sure that the majority of your content, what you put out there, is you. It's your story. Try your best to not do it for the algorithm, even though that is the buzzword of the day. So with my tutors as well, I got a really good team of teachers. A lot of them are also songwriters, and they perform around, they do live gigs, they still try to get their merch out, they try to release albums. So for me, it's about mentoring them and helping them navigate things like rejection, how to handle finances, how to negotiate a contract, these sort of things that are never really taught in music school. When I finished high school and went into music university, you're still taught how to practice all your scales, practice 8 hours a day, get yourself out there, go to the open mic, go to the pubs. For me, I found that was all outdated advice. It worked perfectly in 1982. It sort of works now, only if you're living in a rural country town or maybe Nashville. I don't know. So those are, in terms of working directly with people, that's how I do it these days. And along with that, online with LinkedIn now, I have a couple people where I just help write their story on LinkedIn. And so that way, help take a bit of time off their hands. Time management is one of the bigger challenges as well for independent musicians. So,
and now, are you working exclusively with young people, it sounds like, or with a variety of musicians?
Mainly young people. I mean, I'm still young. I'm only 26, so young people could be anywhere between high school age to 28-year-olds or 30-year-olds. So
okay. So the problems of that demographic, I think, are quite unique, right? I mean, you're still figuring out what you're doing in life. I mean, many people are spending, even longer than that. I mean, it's there's no real rules in terms of how you develop your life nowadays, right? It's kind of a little bit more, do you go to college? Do you not go to college? Do you and musically people are developing as well, right? Like, do you want to be in a band? Do you want to be a solo musician? What kind of genre do you want to do? There's so many different everything's open, right?
Yeah.
It's always open, but I think in your formative years it's even more, maybe it feels like it's more weighty, because you feel like, well, if I'm this kind of musician, maybe I'll always be that kind of musician. Or, I mean, what are some of the issues that you find people come to you with where they're really struggling with expressing themselves creatively?
I think that there's a host of issues and challenges, but it always comes down to, I call it the big three. Maybe one is how to be original, or how to stay creative, or always be putting out good content that is original, that is not the same as all the other content. Two, finding ways to get opportunities to get that music out there and not have to go through the old school route of having to go to the open mic and just wait for someone to discover you out of nowhere. And the third one is whether you go with a label, whether you put your music on Spotify, do you go on YouTube? And that sort of weaves into the other challenge of grappling with social media and realizing that you kind of have to use it to get your music out there. It's not the only way. I know people here in Sydney and other parts of Australia who are not on social media at all, and they have found a way to still succeed, but they're so niche and so specific where I think you have to make it work for you. I know that's a cliche to say that, oh, you just got to make it work for you, but
Mm.
to try to make this a little bit more positive, at least now there's never been more opportunity to have to have a music career, to build a successful career that earns you a decent living, the equivalent income to a 9 to 5 job anywhere,
Mm.
and do it your way. I think the problem is there's no guidance and there's no direct pathway or blueprint on how to get there. So you see all these
Mhm.
people on YouTube, Instagram, all the social platforms, and they will tell you, yeah, I've done it my way. And, I've been able to stay true to myself. I tell my story, but they don't tell you how they got there. So there's
Mhm.
this sort of black hole in the middle where people see the end result and they think, that's easy, and then they realize, yeah, it's still just as hard as it was 20 years ago. It might even be harder because there's more competition now. So, yeah, those are the main
Yeah.
challenges. There's a lot more, but I hear younger musicians talk about that more often when I talk to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that clear of a path, right, for anybody, right? And maybe it's different if you're a jazz musician and a hip hop musician. I mean, everyone's got to find their own path, and so, and it's true. What you see online is oftentimes conflicting, or it's missing information. So it's definitely difficult. Do you find most people you talk to feel like they could become professional musicians and make that their main career, or do you think that most are resigned to feeling like it would just be a side hustle?
Yeah, to be honest, Mark, I think it's the latter, which I
Okay.
wish I wish I could say it was the former, but given that a lot of people that I know personally, and also that I see on social media who I don't know personally, for every, let's say, Maggie Rogers or Lizzie McAlpine, Jacob Collier, there's 1,000 others who won't make it or don't know how to do that, and they don't get as lucky.
Mm,
I still get some people who talk to me and say, "Oh, I wish I could just play all day, write music, and just hope I could have success." And to be honest, most musicians, I think, want to do that. They want to do what
mhm.
Was it Bonnie Wright or Carole King who locked herself in a cabin woods? Or was it Joni Mitchell? One of them. I don't. Or maybe they all did it. I don't know. Do you know which one of
I
them?
don't know that story. I don't know. Yeah.
It was one of them, and hopefully no one quotes me on this. I think one of them, the whole story of locking themselves up in a log cabin in the woods for 8 weeks and then coming out with, maybe it was Tapestry or one of the great albums. And you hear of the great jazz musicians like Charlie Parker, John Coltrane, who would just be playing nonstop for 14 hours. Those stories are legendary, but they're not
Mm,
practical for the current era we live in, unless if you live in the Cayman Islands or somewhere. So, um, yeah, I
yeah.
wish I could tell you that it was better, but I think the reality is more younger musicians, and maybe even older musicians, are feeling the pressure and perhaps feeling like being a professional musician is still going to be a part-time gig for them.
Hmm. What do you think technology can do in this respect? To what kind of technologies could make this more promising for young musicians, such that they would feel like, maybe this is something that could be even more lucrative for them?
Mm. I'm a big fan of technology, and as I mentioned earlier, there's never been a greater time in terms of opportunity.
Hmm. Hmm.
Take the emotion out of it, which is hard in music, I know, but take the emotion out. You know, the how should I say it? The barrier to entry is so low now. All you need is, and it's been repeated many times. All you need is a phone, some sort of camera, and the ability to make music with something, whether it's an instrument or your voice, or you just talk about music. All right. So the barrier to getting there,
Hmm.
just getting yourself out there, is so low. I think the issues that I found is younger musicians are not getting that advice. They're still being told to go to music school. I don't have a problem with music school. I went to music school and I had a decent time, but I think that's just one of 50 options now. So with technology like social media, that's the easiest one. If you put a post out there and you get 100 people watching that, imagine 100 people coming to a live show, or maybe 10 of them buying your album. So
Yeah.
objectively and mathematically, if you look at it that way, I think that can give a lot of musicians a lot of ease and reassurance. And then you have the gear itself, and AI is the talk of the town now. AI is so early on, and there are a lot of issues with it. I've talked to people all over LinkedIn who they're the ones who know what they're doing. But the one thing that I know is it's going to make things far more efficient. So if you're trying to send things out and distribute your music, rather than having to go through 15 loopholes and all the copyrights and licensing and all that jargon, you got 1 or 2 clicks, 1 or 2 steps instead of 15. All the legal stuff probably will be taken care of. So that's all the potential. And perhaps in maybe 10 years time, 15, I guess 20 years, it's a long time period, we may get back to the golden era of musicians and music where you could literally just sit in your room and play for 4, 5, 6 hours and create music. But because of technology, you don't have to then spend time to learn about it. You just spend 10 minutes learning about a program, 1, 2 clicks, pay $10 a year for it, whatever it is. And then it's out there in the internet, in the world, and people will see that. So, it sounds good on paper. I know the people who are working on it are trying their absolute best. It's very early on, and luckily for me and a lot of young musicians, we're going to see it play out. So, I see it like CGI and digitization coming into the film industry when Disney finally decided to go all digital and CGI. CGI came around in, I think, the early 70s, maybe late 60s. It took a very long time for the film industry to completely embrace it. I know now times are quicker and things are moving rapidly. So hopefully it doesn't take 50 years for people to fully embrace and integrate AI, maybe half the time or quarter of the time.
Well, I love that vision that you just painted of kind of going back to just letting musicians make music and the technology taking care of a lot of the other stuff, right? And it won't be zero, right? You'll be involved with the technology, involved with distribution, involved with promotion, production, of course, but to let musicians be musicians and then see some of the remuneration via the internet. That's a really amazing vision. So thanks so much for sharing that. Brian Zhang, thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Mark. I enjoyed talking to you, and hopefully I get to talk to you soon again.
Absolutely. Thank you.